the first order of business is that we need to elect our chairman. So I put pieces of paper in front of you.
I talked to that guy, he wants to.
Thank you.
Because we're gonna do a vice.
Did that work out good for you?
I'll take your,
I got all my signatures.
Mike, it's unanimous that you're chair. Now I'd like to have vice chair, please.
Pretty suspenseful.
And Dana, you will continue to be our vice chairman.
Congratulations, Jan.
Well, the second item on the agenda is consider approving the minutes held from December 29th.
I'd make a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion made, second by David. All in favor? Spirit of America Award.
I don't wanna mention the name, but this is a recommendation that came from our office, unless you have somebody that you would like to nominate, but this came from our
I'll
office.
make a motion, we accept the candidate that you nominated.
Second.
Motion made, second by Bob. All in favor?
I think it was a good choice.
To consider remote meetings and participate in policies.
I was trying to hold off on this, but with COVID coming the way it's coming, I think we need to put this into play. Bob has participated in writing this. This is actually from a template from MMA Legal, and all we had to do is make a few changes on it to fit us. I've got a clean copy here. Bob, I took all of your recommendations and put them into play. So this is something that, this doesn't allow us just to have a willy-nilly meeting that's remote. There has to be a reason, usually a medical situation, with COVID coming the way it's coming, the chances are we're gonna have to do this on occasion. So I would like to see this voted and signed.
Any questions on it? Any thoughts on it?
This doesn't mean we're gonna do them all, this just gives us that ability to put it into play if needed.
Right. And, you know, I mean, we can keep this on as long as we have to, but if I have a counselor who's not here because of COVID, we can set up the meeting hour, we can end up doing it that way, so.
I'd make a motion, we adopt this policy.
Second by David. All in favor?
Thank you. I'm gonna pass this around so I can get a signature on this one.
I'll just put it for myself.
See, that's all signed. Next is consider adopting an action plan for Memorial Hall.
Okay, so we've had 2 meetings with our Memorial Hall Committee, and we've got results from those meetings already. At the last meeting, we actually had Mark Stevens, who was one of the narrators of the life safety violations from Memorial Hall. He gave us a great presentation. Kelly was during that meeting, present at that meeting. John wasn't there at that time. But we came up with a 9-point action plan that would allow us to keep Mr. Scott in the building for an extended period of time, while we continue to figure out ways to go and move this project forward. And as you can see, one of the key pieces of this is actually reducing the amount of people that are in the building at one point in time. He'd like to see it lowered to 49 people. What that does is it kind of releases us from some of the violations that we had, and we can move it forward. I'm meeting with Scott Stevens tomorrow at noontime, depending on the outcome of tonight's meeting. Scott's gonna have some responsibilities. There's a couple of things in here that he owns that we're gonna have to deal with. But none of it is super expensive. The most expensive part of this is actually to install a fire alarm system inside the building. I mean, we've got a wooden structure building with a stone fascia on it. Building could burn, and there's no way of preventing that or noticing it from the outside, so the fire alarm system would be critical. That's gonna come with a price tag. We don't know yet how much that is. The other ones are removing the combustible materials that are in the building, mezzanine area, there's some varnish in the basement. Our town records are in question. There's possibly ways we can get around that part. I'm gonna explore that a little bit more. We gotta prevent smoking, which the town actually has a policy for town property, no smoking on it. So we're gonna stop that. We have to address the exit signs, they've gotta be illuminated. We've gotta install some emergency lighting. We can do a combination light, like what you see up here, but that's not huge money by any stretch of the imagination. We are the landlords of that building. It would be just like any landlord-tenant situation. Landlords would be expected to actually bring the building into compliance for their tenants. So I think that this is a good step forward. Kelly and I are working on the budget right now. It's gonna be about a $14,000 hole in our budget without this rent. And I think, you know, a vacant building that's not heated is gonna deteriorate faster than a building that's occupied and heated. So I would certainly recommend myself, and like to see this building at least continue to get used as we continue to try to figure out ways to bring the building back to life. Simple stuff, removing the padlocks and the hasps on the doors. The doors, to turn them around, talked with AJ about that. There's a couple of them that he's gonna struggle with, but we can figure it out.
Do we have any buildings that are monitored now?
This building's monitored, the fire, the police station's monitored, the public library's monitored.
I thought the library was.
Yeah.
Now who monitors it? Is it Seacoast?
It's either Seacoast or CARE, one of the two.
Oh, there's
CARE
another one.
Security's another one that,
Oh, okay,
they do.
I didn't know how many, I thought.
Yeah, it might be Seacoast that's doing the majority of our stuff. I don't think CARE's over here in the police department right now, because they started taking care of fire monitoring as well.
So there's more than one choice available, I didn't know
Yeah,
if there was.
we go out for bid on it, because, I mean, Mark seems to think it's gonna be in the $12,000 range. I think we can do something less than that, because I don't remember it being that expensive here.
Bob?
And we have some money set aside,
We've got $9,000 in an account right
which
now.
we hope would cover most of it.
I think it will cover most of it.
Have you thought about, I'm sorry,
No, what I was gonna say is, if we need to take another couple thousand from here or there, we can make that move.
have you thought about actually renting a storage unit off-site somewhere for the,
I have not thought about that. One thing we
it's not
talked-
all that expensive to rent a storage unit, and there's
Yeah.
several of them around.
One thing I did find out, I know Dawn and I, when we toured the building, a few of us did, one of the comments was about, scanning in the materials that's there and not having paper records. But I have since learned that if you're a government or a municipality, you have to have paper records. You can't just have scanned in, so there has to be paper backup on it. So we can't get rid of those paper records. We have to keep them for 7 years.
Well, for $50 a month, you probably could
It's a good
store
idea.
more than records that you've got. Then your problem is out of sight, out of mind until
I never thought about that.
something better happens.
And I think that new one up the top of Summer Street's all metal, isn't it, the whole building? No,
I don't know.
it seemed to be when they
I
were
think it
building
is.
it.
It's the most modern one in the area.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a good idea. So if we're okay with this, I'd like to go and see a vote on it, so we can start moving forward with that project.
Question. So the discussions with Scott basically are gonna center around his responsibilities and our responsibilities, and then rent,
Yeah.
because we haven't even discussed that as a, I know every year we have a discussion about what we're gonna charge. So that's still to be decided.
Now, having said that, Scott could come in tomorrow and say, I can't live with the 49 people limit, and this whole thing will just go to the wayside, and we'll just continue to march forward with our original plan for the building. Because he's gotta be willing to work with
Sure.
us.
That's what I'm thinking, that all those things have to come in together, and if they don't,
And, you know, so I don't know, although I did talk with him on the phone, he was excited, think he can continue working out of there. I don't know what he's willing to, do on his end to make this happen. But I will tomorrow, he's coming in at lunchtime.
I make a motion, we proceed with this and get some prices, and so we know at budget time what we're looking at.
Motion made, second by Bob, all in favor? Next one is, consider approving a June 10th, as
Yep.
holiday.
Okay, so the reason why this is coming up is because we got labor negotiations, and this is going to be one of the things you're gonna ask for. Juneteenth. Apparently, I didn't do a good job.
Yep.
So what I did was I didn't send it out, other towns are dealing with the same thing right now, and, so I was one of the respondents on this, and I think, no, I wasn't, but I got a copy of it. And you can see the towns that are adopted it, have adopted it, considering it, and the towns who are not considering it. I think there's 4 towns on there that aren't, maybe 5, and then the remainder are either considering or have adopted it already. It's a federal holiday, it's a new one, states adopted it. So I need to know where you stand as a council, if we are gonna recognize that in the town vote.
Go ahead.
I guess my off-the-cuff comment is, it's crazy how we find days to, one a month for the Hallmark people to come up with new cars to celebrate new holidays. And I think we're in negotiations now, and I would rather not, support this at this time, but wait to see how negotiations and how the state and the federal government are gonna actually handle this.
Other comments, Dave? Bob?
Well, we know how the federal government's gonna handle it, right? Don't we? As far as paid,
This is a holiday.
and Maine is going to as well. Yeah, I don't see the harm of waiting till, this isn't a pressing issue until June the 19th, however, this is pretty well a foregone conclusion, I think. And while I'm not in favor of adding more and more and more holidays, I think it's going to be hard to deny one that the feds and the state has already.
I'm with Bob. I mean, you can say no, you'd be looked at, why not more so than why did you do it? It's like, why didn't you do it? There's a lot of history behind this date. I think we'd be out of place if we didn't do it.
Our town office has problems trying to operate when the state's closed, don't they, with a lot of your licensing and things?
Yeah, it's very hard, you know, because you won't be able to contact motor vehicles or any of the departments.
Yeah, I don't mind waiting a while, but I think it's foregone conclusion also that, you know, we should give it as a holiday.
I move we table this item until later in today's session.
Motion's been made, do we have a second? Second, tabled. Opposed? Thank you. Last but not least on this, we have to do a sign off on the manager's evaluation.
And I've got that right here someplace. The other thing while you guys are doing that is I passed out the code enforcement officer's report. And I wanna let you know that this year was a record year for housing starts incredible. I shared that at Central Maine Growth Council's meeting this morning, and I mean, that's what a lot of towns would dream to have. And this next year coming up looks like it's gonna be just as big, if not larger than this past year. Almost $11 million worth of new growth in the town of Oakland. You know, it's pretty amazing. Huh? Yeah, so, I think you've all got copies of that. A lot of houses coming up. But with houses come students. With students comes the cost of education. So, you know, and we know that the cost of education is more than what your taxes are gonna bring in for students. So we don't know where that balance is at.
Town's gonna grow, we're gonna have new people.
The town is
Young
growing,
people.
the town is growing, and, it has been for the last few years, but it seems to be getting more robust as time goes on. And, you know, I mean, unfortunately, you know, for my town, with everything that's going on with the water situation over the town that I live in, you know, that's not happening over there because of that, because of the bad advertisement they've got. And, you know, we know what's going on in the town across the side of the hill there, that's more downtown development. But they're built out pretty much, there's not a lot of room for new construction. Sydney's also doing well. You know, there's a lot of new growth in Sydney, but, we're getting our share of it right now, and it's getting more, you can't buy a house in the town of Oakland right now. And, you know, it's just, if it's up for sale, there's a bidding war for it, so if anybody wants to put their house on the market, you're gonna sell it. You don't even have to sweep the floors, you just still sell it.
Sarah Dave?
We're talking about the impact on the schools and stuff, other things get impacted as well, as sewer district, law enforcement, fire service, EMS, all of those things are impacted anytime you add housing, so just keep that in mind as well. It's not just 22 houses, it's families.
A lot of these look to be developments, because I didn't even recognize the street names that they had on there for quite a few of these. Yeah, somebody's building developments.
It's looking good. I mean, even our budget's looking good for this upcoming year, this season. You know, there is a slight possibility, and I'm not gonna say too much, but there's a slight possibility that we may be able to go into a full-time fire department, do everything we're planning on doing without seeing a tax increase, because of things that are happening right now. And, there'll be more follow on that as time moves on. But the budget's gonna be interesting this year.
Anything else?
That's all I have, Kevin.
Cool, and about the room, Mr. Cox, did you have anything tonight? Ms. Roderick, did you have anything tonight?
No.
David, did you have anything tonight?
I am good, sir.
Mr. Bob?
I have a technical question. Is the owl supposed to be looking for the person who's speaking?
Yes, it is.
It's having a hard time getting over to you. I think it's
We
not,
may have to move it
it's
closer
too
this way.
far away from you. We need to
Yeah,
get, we need to get chummier or
We're
something.
trying to figure the dynamics out here. This was a test bed. We got you guys in there, that's all that really counts.
That's, is more important. That's all I have.
Thank you. John Bobbin? I'm all set. Mr. Wrigley?
I thought maybe, our town manager might tell us a little bit about the state wanting to take part of our recreation area that we just bought. He and I have been talking about it some, I don't know if everybody's up to speed on it, that's all, but.
Yeah, so Eric and I met with Brian Bronson. We shared with him the fact that we had two properties up there separated by railroad tracks, and one of them might be a nice piece of property for parking lot to access that trail. But as the conversation moved forward, we found out just how large a parking lot they're looking for, which is approximately 5 acres. In my opinion, at this point in time, I don't think it's a good idea. I think they need to find that parking lot someplace else, because if you've got, you know, if you go up to Newport and look at that 2.5 acre parking lot that they've got for the ATVs, on any weekend, it's completely filled. Vehicles are parked on both sides of the road. It's a nightmare. 5 acre parking lot means that we're gonna have literally hundreds of vehicles on a weekend, on a nice weekend, traveling into that place. It's gonna be dusty, it's gonna create a nightmare for the neighborhood. It's gonna defeat anything that we wanna do, with that parcel of land. My idea is not to go and have that an ATV field and a snowmobile location, because that's what this is gonna turn into. Now, having said that, there's a possibility if they're not willing to buy that piece of land, that we won't have a parking lot down here, because they're struggling with trying to find any place. That's why they jumped on this. That's why the state's saying, we'll pay to have that parking lot built. We'll get involved in it that way. But I'm not sure that it's gonna be a right fit. And I think that there's so much value that that little park is gonna bring to this town, that I don't wanna kill it. And there's a possibility that that could be a location for the town office. And if that happens, we're not gonna want vehicles traveling through that spot, you know, so I'm not feeling it right now.
It kind of changed the complexion of what I thought the park would be used for when Gary explained, fellow explained that to me. You know, just that much traffic coming and going, and we were, I don't know about the rest of you, but I was picturing that would be a quiet place where people could snowshoe and walk, and kids could play without traffic and stuff like that. I just think this kind of changes the whole complexion of the thing, and there's neighbors there, and we didn't tell the neighbors when we bought it that we were gonna establish a place with 5 acres of trucks with with ATVs on them coming and going all day, so. And there's another lot that's for sale adjacent to ours right now that the state could buy. It's had a for sale sign on it for months there. And it abuts the property that we have, so I think they could very easily purchase that and put as big as 60 acres there. They can put as big a parking lot as they want. And, you know, there's all kinds of room for a buffer around the parking lot, and so I just think.
Has that been suggested to them, Dana?
No, it hasn't. Dana brought that to my attention at one of the last times we talked, and I haven't made a contact with them, because we gotta find out where you guys wanna go with this. I mean, if you wanna see ATV parking lot up there, then there's no sense me making that recommendation, so.
Tom?
John? Well, I agree with Dana, but John wants to say something.
Is this the trail that was in the paper relative to going all the way up to for snowmobiles and ATVs? How far down does that come to where the tracks branch?
Down here at the school,
Yeah.
it branches right down behind where the.
Is that how far the trail's coming down?
That's how far the trail's coming down. It'll dead end where our parking lot is, if that's what we choose to do. But the other fear that I'm gonna have is ATVs running up Fairfield Street to access that parking lot. Access that trailhead. It's gonna be a nightmare. I just don't see any good.
I want this like so, I don't want to make this.
Now, Don Bowman.
I just, following up on what Dana said, we bought that property for a recreation area for the town, not to provide easy access. It sounded positive when we said, well, it's right near the trail, they can get on the trail. But if we're talking numbers of vehicles that are gonna be wanting to use that, we will still have problems unless the state does buy that other property, because we're gonna have to have a parking lot of some sort. And people will probably still try to park there to access the trail. So that's something we have to consider, but I think the main focus is a recreation area, potential town office, whatever might come, but not to lead us into, why would we wanna buy a $75,000 piece of property for a parking lot? And if the state can buy, how much does that other property cost?
Online, it says 100,000, but it's been for sale for quite a while, and I haven't seen any sign that says sold on it yet.
And if that would fit in with what we're doing, and they can have their parking lot up there, that would be good, as long as it doesn't interfere.
That's a small amount compared to what they're gonna put into this trail system they're talking about, and, the town could help, and I think they was assuming that we would end up plowing this place, right, in the winter.
Yeah, plowing a 5-acre parking lot, though. It's twice the size of the high school student parking lot.
I think it would be wise for them to buy a piece of property.
I do too, and they'd have plenty of room for a buffer up there, when you get 60 acres, and you want 5 acres in the middle of it, you got all kinds of room for trees around there to block the noise and sound or whatever, I think they ought to be pursuing it.
You gotta keep in mind, it's not all about them parking too. What are those ATVers gonna bring to this community? They're gonna be buying gas here, they're gonna be eating here, they're gonna be buying snacks here. I'm an ATVer, and anytime we start someplace, we're spending money before we leave.
Yeah.
And usually when we leave, we gas up too, so I mean, it's not all about us being inconvenienced for the piece of our property, it's about what we can bring to the community as well.
And that was talked about, Brian, and, said that this is gonna be huge financial benefit to the area businesses, there's no question. If we could find a parking lot like that piece of property, it would do the same benefit, but I do agree with that.
You think about the town of Greenville, you just drive through Greenville, what do you see on the road? Probably more ATVs than you do cars.
And I think this would be great for our businesses, I just don't think it's a good fit for what we sold that place as to the citizens when they voted to buy it. So,
But you've got a pretty good size population in this town, like Dave, who own ATVs, that would love to see the town have parking lots so that they can access it from their own hometown.
I think
So
we
you're
should,
gonna- that you're gonna see that there's gonna be some pushback from that group as well.
We could buy the other piece of property and lease it to the state.
We buy it and sell it, makes money on it.
I'll talk to Brian, I'm gonna explain to them tomorrow, I'll copy you on the email that I send it out to them, and let them know that this is not really giving us warm and fuzzy feelings. And, the other thing that wasn't mentioned here is bathrooms. I mean, these guys, they tend to drink a little beer when they're ATV, and they've gotta go to the bathroom. We don't, somebody's out there hiking, find toilet paper stuck to the trees, it's not gonna go over well.
No.
So we're gonna have to do something with that too.
I don't think there's a need to make a decision right now, we can table it and see how it, I mean, we got plenty of time, I don't think anything's happening right off.
Well, he's actually talking this next summer. That's what they're talking. They wanna get started because he wants to find the money to build the parking lot, because I told him the town would not be spending that kind of money on a parking lot. So he wants to get this thing rolling. So, but having said that, let me open that line of communication with what the council's feel is on it, and you'll be part of the discussion. And if you wanna weigh in on that with him, have at it.
Will the neighbors be brought up to speed as it's progressing? Maybe
Yeah,
we don't want
I don't see it
everybody across
happening,
the
Kelly,
street.
but, I will, if it's gonna,
I already have ATVs that ride up and down Fairfield Street nonstop.
if the town goes in that direction, absolutely, there'll be some public hearings on that, so that residents can, and you and I both know what the residents gonna say on it. I personally would want it behind my house, so.
but maybe we can help them with, if they do that park in the other spot,
Yeah.
if we got town crew and stuff, maybe we could give them some assistance there or something, but it wouldn't be in our recreation area.
Good. That's the answer I was hoping.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second. Second by Bob, all in favor? Have a good night, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
We've had a heck of a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
I was looking at a list of new houses over, I got it here somewhere, and, there's a lot of them that are on streets that I didn't recognize the names of, so somebody's building some development.
We can pull this new fire, this full-time fire department off. Everybody went out taxing the people. That's what's happening. I mean, I was getting really nervous about $430,000 budget and everything else, but there's been some serious stuff happening, and a lot of it is the revenue that we took over from last year, the extra revenue, because we have that 10% clause in our, you guys voted on that where you only let your fund equity get no more than 10% of your total expenses. That's, we went way over that, so that's gonna go back into the budget, it's taxpayers' money.
What was the figure that guy gave us last meeting, was it 1.7 million or something?
1.7 million, 10% is, 1.14 million.
Oh, yeah.
So there's almost 500,000, plus on top of that, we have the equipment capital expense. Last year was 273,000, it's 510,000, so we're gonna bring that back down to 300,000, it's 210,000 we're gonna add into it. We're rolling in cash right now.
Love it.
Yeah.
Do they,
still build the town hall.
She's a
on
level
this
shot.
one. So it's all one complex. Well, it depends on if you wanna spend the money. to
Oh,
sell it for.
no.
This one here, I don't know that.
I'm so surprised you agreed to
So
it.
that 60 acres, does that have a egress from,
Yeah, it comes right from Fairfield
Fairfield
Street.
Street.
That guy cut wood there all last year. There's a road in there, really rough looking road.
oh, yes, yes, yes.
It says Bean
That's-
Group on the side.
that's where it
The sign's
is.
kind of falling over.
It's probably a small entry, and then it gets really
Well,
big.
it looks like maybe 50, 75 feet, and then it crosses the first of the tracks. And then you got
Yeah, it's
the
a
big
tech
field,
center tonight.
and it actually crosses the second set of
We don't
tracks.
need to check that to anybody.
Perfect for the state.
Perfect for them.
They got lots of money.
But $287 billion.
Transportation committee.
They can do that.
It actually comes quite close to Oak Street.